The Zaveran Dominion's imperial capital shimmered under a pale green sky, its spire-strewn skyline a testament to centuries of conquest. The air buzzed with the distant hum of anti-grav vehicles and the harsh tones of the Zaveran language crackling over public address systems. Beneath the towering, obsidian walls of the Hall of Accord, Paul Cruz stepped out of his shuttle, an island of calm amid the swirling storm of alien pomp and hostility. Paul adjusted the high collar of his formal diplomatic attire, its sleek black fabric threaded with silver, a design meant to convey respect without subservience. He was tall and lean, his dark hair flecked with early grays, though his steady hazel eyes betrayed no sign of nervousness. Every move was deliberate, measured, a diplomat's armor in a place where the slightest misstep could spell doom. The Zaverans loomed around him, their imposing, insectoid forms casting long shadows on the polished Blackstone Plaza. Their chitinous exoskeletons gleamed in the pale sunlight, and their multifaceted eyes regarded him with disdain. Paul felt the weight of their judgment, but dismissed it. He wasn't here to be liked. At the base of the steps stood Emperor Zorlith himself, his emerald carapace adorned with ceremonial gold inlays. His mandibles clicked softly in what might have passed for amusement, though Paul knew better. Zorlith's reputation for cruelty was well earned, and his disdain for humans had been broadcast across the quadrant. "Welcome, humans," Zorlith said, his translator converting his guttural tones into clipped, synthetic English. "You arrive with a proposal of peace. How quaint." Paul inclined his head, offering a polite smile. "Peace serves both our interests, your majesty. Conflict, however, serves neither." The emperor's mandibles twitched, and he gestured for Paul to follow him into the hall. The chamber was vast, its ceiling carved to resemble the endless void of space. A circular table dominated the center, surrounded by Zaveran ministers, each more disdainful than the last. Paul took his seat, the lone human amid a sea of hostility. The negotiations began in earnest, a verbal dance of thinly veiled threats and calculated concessions. Paul held firm, his calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the Zaverans' barely restrained aggression. He knew their tactics well: intimidation, manipulation, provocation, and countered each with unwavering resolve. Hours passed, and the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Paul's words carried the weight of Earth's hopes for a fragile peace, yet he could feel the Zaverans testing him, searching for weakness. Zorlith's eyes gleamed with a predator's anticipation. It was during a recess that the first attempt came. Paul stepped into a secluded corridor, his mind replaying the last round of talks. A faint rustling sound drew his attention, but it was too late. A Zaveran warrior lunged from the shadows, its blade-like forelimbs slashing toward his chest. Instinct and training took over. Paul sidestepped the attack, his movements precise and economical. The concealed device in his sleeve activated, emitting a burst of electromagnetic energy that sent the assassin sprawling. Before the creature could recover, Earth's covert operatives, monitoring Paul through advanced surveillance, neutralized the threat. Paul stood over the unconscious Zaveran, his heart pounding but his expression unchanged. His eyes scanned the corridor, already calculating the implications. This wasn't a rogue act of rebellion. It was a message. By the time Paul returned to the negotiating chamber, the assassin's body had vanished, and the corridor was immaculate. Zorlith's mandibles clicked softly as Paul resumed his seat, and the Emperor's gaze held an unmistakable challenge. Paul's voice was steady as he addressed the assembly. "Shall we continue, or have other arrangements been made?" A ripple of unease passed through the ministers. Zorlith's mandibles clicked again, though his tone remained measured. "An unfortunate misunderstanding, no doubt. We assure you of your safety, Ambassador Cruz." Paul offered a thin smile, letting the lie hang in the air. He knew better than to press the matter here. Survival in Zaveran diplomacy required patience, and Paul had an abundance of it. As the talks resumed, Paul's mind raced. The attempt on his life was no accident, and it wouldn't be the last. The Zaverans underestimated humanity, viewing Earth's pursuit of peace as weakness. They believed they could intimidate Paul Cruz into submission or silence. They were wrong. Far above the Xaverian capital, an Earth orbital relay intercepted Paul's encrypted signal. His message, composed in carefully coded bursts, detailed the assassination attempt and the volatile state of the negotiations. On Earth, Admiral Marcus Vance received the transmission, his sharp eyes narrowing as he read the report. Paul's walking a razor's edge. Vance muttered to Dr. Elias Trent, who stood beside him in the UTC command chamber. If they think they can scare us into submission, they're about to learn how wrong they are. Back on Xaverian Prime, Paul sat in his quarters, the tension of the day pressing heavily on him. He reviewed the treaty drafts and adjusted his strategy, anticipating the Empire's next move. The Xaverians were proud, cunning, and dangerous, but Paul had faced worse odds. As he stared out at the alien city, its eerie beauty silhouetted against the darkening sky, Paul's resolve hardened. Earth had sent him here to secure peace. But if the Xaverians chose war, they would learn that humanity was no longer the passive, fledgling species they believed it to be. For now, Paul played the diplomat, the calm before the storm. But deep in his heart, he knew that humanity's patience was not infinite. The Xaverians had made their first move, and Paul Cruz was ready to make the next. News of the assassination attempt on Paul Cruz sent shockwaves through the halls of the United Terran Council. The footage was undeniable. A Xaverian warrior striking from the shadows, only to be outmaneuvered by the quick-thinking diplomat. The recording, though discreetly obtained, was irrefutable evidence of the Xaverian Empire's duplicity. In the command chamber of Earth's orbital headquarters, Admiral Marcus Vance watched the grainy feed for the third time. His grizzled features were set in a grim expression, his piercing blue eyes scanning every detail of the attack. "They crossed the line," he said, his voice low, but carrying the weight of command. Dr. Elias Trent stood beside him, hands clasped behind his back. The head of Earth's Strategic Research Division was a wiry man with a perpetually thoughtful expression. His sharp mind was responsible for much of humanity's technological advancements in recent years. "Paul survived," Trent said, his tone measured. "And he's still in the game. That tells us two things." Vance glanced at him, waiting. 1. They underestimated him. 2. They underestimated us. Vance's lips curled into a humorless smile. "They won't make that mistake twice." Earth's official response to the assassination attempt was restrained, a carefully worded communique that condemned the act and demanded explanations. Privately, however, preparations began for something far more decisive. The Xaverians had tested humanity's resolve, and humanity was done playing the pacifist. On Xaverian Prime, Paul Cruz continued his delicate dance with Emperor Zorlith and his council. Each day brought new provocations, thinly veiled threats, subtle undermining of his authority, and an increasingly aggressive tone in negotiations. Paul met every challenge with calm professionalism, but his patience wore thin. The breaking point came when word reached Earth of a Xaverian raid on an outlying human colony. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving entire settlements in ruins. Survivors described the Xaverian forces as merciless, their actions not of warriors, but executioners. Paul was in the middle of a session when the news arrived, transmitted via encrypted channels from Earth. He read the message, his expression betraying no hint of the storm brewing inside him. He looked up to find Zorlith watching him, the Emperor's mandibles twitching in what could only be interpreted as amusement. Paul's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. This was no misunderstanding. The room fell silent. Even the Xaverian ministers seemed taken aback by his tone. Zorlith leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes glittering. "Do you accuse the Xaverian Empire of such actions, Ambassador Cruz? Be cautious with your words." Paul stood, his gaze steady and unyielding. "I don't accuse. I state a fact. Your forces massacred civilians, families, children. Is this the peace you claim to value?" The Emperor's mandibles spread in a mockery of a grin. "Peace, Ambassador, is a matter of perspective." Paul left the chamber, his mind racing. This was more than a test. It was a declaration. The Zaverans had no intention of honoring the talks. They sought to provoke, to dominate, to show humanity its place in the galactic hierarchy. But Earth had grown far beyond the fragile, divided world it once was. Hours later, Paul transmitted another encrypted message to Earth. This time, the details were far graver. The Zaverans weren't just raiding colonies. They were developing a biological weapon capable of wiping out entire human cities. The evidence was incontrovertible. Schematics, intercepted communications, even a rough timeline for deployment. In the UTC command chamber, Vance read the report, his jaw tightening with each line. Around him, Earth's military and scientific leaders debated the next steps. "Enough," Vance said, his voice cutting through the noise. "We've played nice long enough. If they want to test our limits, let's show them how far we're willing to go." Dr. Trent nodded, already outlining strategies. "We'll need precision. The Zaverans expect brute force, not calculated strikes." Vance agreed. "They'll never see us coming." Earth's response was swift and decisive. The fleet, a testament to humanity's ingenuity and resolve, mobilized under the banner of Operation Retribution. These weren't just ships. They were the culmination of decades of advancement, equipped with adaptive AI, cloaking systems, and weapons that could reduce entire battle groups to ash in moments. Paul, still entrenched in the lion's den of Zaveran politics, played his part with flawless precision. He fed Earth's forces critical intelligence, every transmission another thread in the web tightening around the Empire. The Zaverans remained oblivious, their arrogance blinding them to the storm building on the horizon. The final straw came when Zorlith publicly declared that humanity would learn its place through submission or annihilation. Paul watched the broadcast from his quarters, his jaw clenched. This wasn't just a war of weapons. It was a war of survival, of identity, of proving that humanity could not and would not be broken. Far above Zaveran Prime, the first of Earth's strike teams slipped into position, their ships cloaked and silent. Paul's final message to Admiral Vance was brief but telling. Asterisk, they think we're weak. Show them they're wrong, asterisk. On Earth, screens lit up with footage of the fleet departing. Across cities, towns, and settlements, humanity watched with bated breath, their resolve hardening with every second. The Zaverans thought they could intimidate humanity into submission, but they had underestimated one crucial truth. Humanity had only ever needed one reason to fight back, and now they had thousands. As the first Earth ships breached Zaveran space, Paul stood by his window, looking out at the alien city below. The sky, a muted green, was calm for now. He knew it wouldn't last. The Zaverans had forced Earth's hand, and now they would learn the cost of underestimating the human race. Paul's lips curled into a faint smile, not of triumph, but of quiet satisfaction. The Zaverans had made their move. Now it was Earth's turn. The stars shimmered coldly against the void as the Earth fleet emerged from hyperspace, silent predators in the night. Cloaked in cutting-edge stealth technology, the ships were invisible to Zaveran sensors, their movements a testament to humanity's ingenuity and resolve. At the helm of the flagship Resolute, Admiral Marcus Vance stood tall, his steel-blue eyes fixed on the holographic map before him. The Zaveran supply lines sprawled like arteries, pulsing with the lifeblood of the Empire. "Target confirmed," a tactical officer announced, his voice clipped but steady. Vance nodded. "Begin Phase 1. No mercy for their infrastructure." The fleet's precision strikes began with surgical efficiency. Orbital stations, resource depots, and supply convoys were systematically dismantled, their destruction swift and absolute. Each blast of plasma fire, each detonation of a precision missile, sent ripples through the Zaveran networks. Panic spread as the Empire's vital connections were severed in mere hours. On board the Resolute, Vance's expression was grim but resolute. "They'll know soon enough who's behind this," he said to Dr. Elias Trent, who monitored the unfolding chaos through layers of data feeds. "They'll know. Trent replied, his sharp features illuminated by the glow of his console. But they won't know how to stop it. They've grown complacent, relying on brute force for centuries. Our tactics will be as alien to them as our ingenuity. While Earth's fleet ravaged the Empire's outer systems, Paul Cruz worked from the shadows within Xavern Prime. The Diplomat had become a spy, his position granting him access to corridors of power and secrets the Xaverns believed impenetrable. With every passing day, he fed Earth vital intelligence, guiding the fleet's movements like a maestro conducting a symphony. Paul's calm demeanor belied the storm raging within him. The Xaverns had escalated beyond mere provocation. Their raids and plans for biological warfare had turned this conflict into an existential fight. He knew that Earth's strikes, though precise, would not be enough to bring the Empire to its knees. A decisive blow was needed, one that would shatter their confidence and break their will to fight. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Paul intercepted critical information detailing the location of a Xavern biological weapons facility hidden deep within a fortified asteroid field. The facility housed the Empire's most advanced research and their deadliest weapon, a pathogen engineered to target human DNA with horrifying precision. Transmitting the coordinates to the fleet, Paul added a single line to his message. "This is where we make our stand." Vance's jaw tightened as he read the report. "This is it," he said, addressing the bridge crew. "We take out that facility, and we send the Xaverns a message they'll never forget." The fleet moved with calculated precision, navigating the asteroid field with the help of Earth's advanced AI systems. Automated drones scouted ahead, marking paths and identifying threats. Xavern defenses were formidable. Laser turrets, fighter squadrons, and mines hidden among the rocks, but humanity's ingenuity proved superior. The first wave of Earth strike teams breached the facility's outer defenses, their ships unloading squads of heavily armored soldiers equipped with adaptive exosuits. The Xaverns fought back with ferocity, their insectoid warriors clashing with human forces in brutal close-quarters combat. Inside the facility, Paul led a covert team tasked with sabotaging the pathogen's containment systems. Armed with a compact plasma pistol and a portable hacking device, he moved through the labyrinthine corridors with practiced ease. Around him, the sounds of battle echoed. Plasma bursts, the shriek of dying warriors, and the relentless hum of alarms. General Tharkin, the Empire's most ruthless strategist, commanded the facility's defenses. His towering form, encased in segmented black armor, loomed over the control room. When he received word of the human incursion, his mandibles twitched with rage. "They dare challenge us here?" Tharkin growled, his voice a guttural snarl. "Crush them. Leave no survivors." Paul's team infiltrated the control center, disabling security systems and planting explosive charges on key infrastructure. The tension was palpable, each step fraught with danger. Paul knew that one misstep could doom the mission and humanity's future. The confrontation between Paul and Tharkin was inevitable. The general intercepted the Diplomat in the heart of the facility, his massive frame blocking the only exit. "You," Tharkin hissed, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. "The human who thinks he can outmaneuver an empire. How quaint." Paul raised his plasma pistol, his hand steady despite the odds. "Empires fall, General. Yours will be no different." The battle was swift and brutal. Tharkin's speed and strength were formidable, his blade-like forelimbs striking with lethal precision. But Paul's agility and tactical mind turned the encounter into a deadly game of strategy. In the end, a well-placed shot from Paul's pistol pierced Tharkin's exoskeleton, and the general collapsed in a heap of chitin and ichor. With the charges set and the pathogen neutralized, Paul's team retreated as the facility began to collapse. The final explosion was visible even from the outer reaches of the asteroid field, a brilliant flash of light that marked the end of the Xavern Empire's deadliest weapon. Back on the Resolute, Vance watched the explosion on the main display, his expression unyielding. "Mission accomplished," he said, his voice carrying both relief and determination. "But we're not done yet." This is just the beginning. The Zaverans, reeling from the loss of their supply lines and the destruction of their biological weapons program, scrambled to respond. Their once unshakable confidence began to fracture, whispers of doubt spreading through their ranks. On Zaveran Prime, the Emperor's throne room was silent save for the faint hum of energy emanating from the walls. Zorlith sat rigidly, his mandibles clicking in agitation as reports of Earth's victories flooded in. Paul returned to the negotiating table the following day, his composure unbroken despite the chaos surrounding him. The Emperor's multifaceted eyes bore into him, a mixture of anger and fear. "Your people think they can challenge us," Zorlith said, his voice low and menacing. Paul leaned forward, his hazel eyes locking onto the Emperor's. "We don't think, Zorlith. We know." The tension in the room was electric, the silent acknowledgement that humanity had shifted the balance of power. The Zaveran Empire was no longer untouchable, and Earth had proven that it would not bow. As Paul left the chamber, he felt a flicker of hope. The tide was turning, but the battle was far from over. Humanity had made its mark, but the cost of true peace would require more than victory. It would require the courage to see it through to the end. The collapse of the Zaveran Empire began like a fracture in glass. Small, almost imperceptible at first, but spreading with relentless inevitability. Earth's precision strikes had dismantled the Empire's critical infrastructure. Its fleets were in disarray, and its confidence lay shattered. Yet it was not the destruction of weapons or supply lines that truly unraveled the Zaverans. It was the fear. On Zaveran Prime, Emperor Zorlith sat motionless on his obsidian throne, his multifaceted eyes dim as he gazed at the holographic display of his empire. Reports flowed in like a tide of despair. Rebellions in the outer systems, defections among military commanders, and whispers of alliances forming between subjugated worlds. For centuries, the Zaveran Empire had ruled through fear, but now the fear had turned inward. Paul Cruz observed this unraveling from the heart of the empire. The once mighty rulers now seemed diminished, their arrogance replaced by desperation. Even Zorlith's haughty demeanor had crumbled. The Emperor's threats rang hollow, his proclamations ignored. Paul had always understood the power of perception, and now he wielded it like a weapon. "Your empire is collapsing, Zorlith," Paul said, standing before the throne. His voice was calm, almost clinical. "The galaxy sees your weakness. They see that you are not invincible." Zorlith's mandibles clicked in frustration. "This is not over, human. We still hold the strength to crush you." Paul raised an eyebrow, his expression unflinching. "Strength without unity is nothing. Look around you. Your people doubt you. Your allies abandon you. And your enemies, well, they smell blood." Earth's fleet, under Admiral Marcus Vance's command, continued its relentless advance. What had started as precise strikes evolved into a full-scale campaign to dismantle the Zaveran war machine. The fleet was no longer fighting to send a message. It was fighting to ensure the Zaveran Empire could never threaten humanity or any other species again. On board the flagship Resolute, Vance coordinated the final stages of Operation Retribution. His officers worked tirelessly, their determination unwavering. "We're not here to conquer," Vance reminded them. "We're here to liberate, to show the galaxy that tyranny will not go unchallenged." The liberation of Zaveran-occupied worlds became a beacon of hope. Human soldiers and engineers worked alongside the freed populations to rebuild and stabilize, offering aid rather than demands. These actions spoke louder than any proclamation, earning humanity allies in a galaxy long dominated by fear. Dr. Elias Trent, overseeing the humanitarian efforts, saw the impact firsthand. "This is more than a war," he said to Vance during a brief respite. "This is the start of a new order, one where cooperation replaces subjugation." But peace was not yet won. The remnants of the Zaveran fleet regrouped near the Imperial core worlds, a desperate attempt to make a final stand. Paul's intelligence suggested that Zorlith intended to use the Empire's remaining resources to unleash one last devastating attack on Earth. The plan was audacious, a gamble born of desperation. The Zaverans had salvaged components from their destroyed biological weapons program and aimed to deploy them as a last-ditch effort to turn the tide. Paul, upon discovering this, knew the moment for decisive action had come. Through a secure channel, he relayed the critical information to Vance. If they succeed, the cost will be unimaginable. You must strike before they're ready. Vance's response was immediate. We'll finish this, Paul. You've done your part. Now it's our turn. The final battle took place over Zaveran Prime itself, a cataclysmic clash between Earth's fleet and the remnants of the Zaveran Armada. The skies burned as ships exchanged fire, the vacuum of space lit by the brilliance of destruction. Humanity's tactics, honed through years of preparation and innovation, proved superior. As the fleet engaged the Zaveran forces, a smaller, elite team infiltrated the planet's surface. Their mission was clear: disable the weapon before it could be deployed. Paul, refusing to remain on the sidelines, joined the team. The facility housing the weapon was a fortress, its defenses formidable. But Earth's soldiers were undeterred. They moved with precision, their exosuits absorbing the brunt of enemy fire. Paul, though not a soldier, proved invaluable. His knowledge of Zaveran systems allowed the team to bypass security measures and reach the weapon's core. Inside the control room, chaos reigned. Zaveran technicians scrambled to complete the weapon's activation, their desperation palpable. Paul's team burst in, the clash of plasma fire and alien cries filling the air. Paul's focus remained on the weapon. As his team held off the defenders, he worked tirelessly to disable the device. The controls were alien, the interface complex, but Paul's mind raced, his fingers flying over the console. The Zaveran's final act of defiance came in the form of a self-destruct sequence. "They're trying to take us all down with them," one of the soldiers shouted. Paul didn't hesitate. "Buy me time," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. Seconds stretched into eternity as he worked. Finally, with a triumphant beep, the weapon systems powered down. Paul stepped back, his chest heaving. It's done. The team barely escaped the facility before it exploded, a final desperate act by the Zaverans that failed to claim its intended victims. As the flames died down, so too did the Zaveran Empire's last hopes of resistance. In the aftermath, Zorlith was captured, his throne room now a symbol of his empire's fall. Paul stood before him, his gaze unwavering. "This could have ended differently," Paul said, "but you chose conquest over cooperation. And now, you've lost everything." Zorlith said nothing, his defeat etched into every line of his once proud form. Earth's victory was not celebrated with fanfare, but with solemn reflection. The cost had been high, and the scars of war would linger. Yet, amidst the ruins of the Zaveran Empire, hope emerged. Humanity, once seen as a fledgling race, had risen to challenge one of the galaxy's greatest powers. But more than that, it had shown the galaxy a new path, one where strength was tempered by compassion, and where even the most entrenched tyrannies could be overthrown. As Paul returned to Earth, his role as both diplomat and warrior complete, he carried with him a vision of what humanity could achieve. The future was uncertain, the challenges immense, but one thing was clear: humanity had proven its place among the stars. And it was just the beginning.